listening to The Stall and Stable Show, ideas for happy horsekeeping.
In this episode, we welcome back Stacy Anderson from Triple Crown Nutrition to answer listener questions in our regular Triple Crown Nutrition segment. Stacy and I talk about flax allergies, what to look for in your horse's manure, and how long it usually takes to see a difference in your horse when changing feeds. Plus, I have an update on what's happening at Who To. Hint, a lot. All good stuff. So listen in. This is episode 137 of the Stall and Stable Show, brought to you by American Stalls and Triple Crown Nutrition. Today's Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. I'm your host, Helena Harris. The Stall and Stable Show is made possible with the generous support of our sponsors. So please show them your support by learning more about what they do. You can find details at stallandstable.com/support. And if you'd like to support Stall and Stable directly, a free way to do that is to go up to Apple Podcasts and leave us a good review. If you like the show, go ahead and give us 5 stars. If you're not so happy with it, send me an email. We're trying our best to give you what you want from Stall and Stable. Horse stall equipment is one of the largest investments that you'll make for your horse's safety and comfort. This is why American Stalls focuses on equipment that fits more than just the inside of your barn. Their mission is to design products that fit your farm, your design goals, and your lifestyle. And it all has to stand the test of time. You know what they say, do it right or do it over. Well, no one in the horse world has the time or the money to do things over. So doing it right the first time means doing it with American Stalls. To learn all about their extensive selection of fine stall equipment, visit them online at americanstalls.com or follow them on Facebook and Instagram, where you'll find lots of great photos of their products. Welcome back, listeners. We're going to start out this episode with an update from Who To. So it's the end of February, and we've been here for just a little bit over 3 months, and I can tell you that we absolutely love it here. If you've been following this saga, you'll know that Buck and I did not have plans to buy real estate in Aiken, and we certainly didn't have plans to go any further than just buying a place for the winter. But we did decide to put Who Hollow on the market. We are that happy here. There are so many opportunities, and when trying to decide whether or not to bring my horses back to Rhode Island in the summertime, the question that I asked myself is, well, there were 2 questions. Which horse or horses was I going to bring back, and what was I going to do with them? And it wasn't so much a question of which horses, but what was I going to do? And when you compare what there is to do here in South Carolina compared to what there is to do in my area of Rhode Island, there really was no competition. Rhode Island, and Who Hollow in particular, is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful place to live. It's not that great of a place to have horses, and especially Little Compton, which is off the beaten path and difficult to get to if you're really looking for fun and easy, low-level things to do with your horse. You can do that here in Aiken every day of the week. You can go 5 minutes down the road, or you can go 5 hours. The opportunities are seemingly endless. And it's not just for horse stuff. There's so many activities to do. You can go hiking, you can go canoeing or kayaking. There are museums, there's shopping. In a way, it has its own cosmopolitan type of draw. I grew up just outside of New York City, and then I relocated to a suburb of Boston. So I went from New York to Boston to a sleepy little town in Rhode Island. And I missed some good shopping. I missed people. I missed the diversity. You definitely don't get diversity in Little Compton. I'm just going to let that stand. I'm going to leave that out there. You know, if you want to go into Providence, yeah, go to Boston, yeah. But this is just I don't know. It's just way better because there are people from all different parts of the country that come here. And then you've got South Carolina's unique history. But there's a reality here and an authenticity here that is very different than the culture I left in the Northeast. And we can talk about that probably in a whole different podcast. But I've lived a long time in the Northeast, and I'm ready for a change, and I think Buck is as well. Our horses and our cats have said they are very, very happy here. It's been cold. It's not, people have said, don't be surprised. South Carolina gets cold in the winter. And yeah, it does. Things have frozen once or twice, but freezing here and getting down to 30 degrees is not at all like what 30 degrees is up in New England. It's 30 degrees for like an hour here. And then by the time the sun comes up over the horizon, things have warmed up so significantly that it's a pleasant day. So we find ourselves spending a lot more time outdoors, moving, breathing, working, being productive. And the positive impact on my mental health and the mental health of my horses and my husband has been the biggest surprise. You think you're an outdoor person because you're a horse person, but there are horse people, and then there are people who really just need to be outside all the time. We are those people. When Buck is down here, he can work from home quite a bit, but when he's down here and the weather is agreeable, he's sitting on the front porch working. Because why be under a roof when your view includes beautiful trees and horses and animals and blue sky? So we decided to make this a full-time endeavor. Before we did, we said, let's just see, is this a good idea? We've got a beautiful house on the farm coast of New England. Should we rent it out? Maybe make it an investment property? We didn't know what to do. We're throwing all these ideas around. So we said, let's talk to a realtor and get an idea of what we could get for the house. Real estate is crazy right now. We might not make any kind of profit on this house. However, I'm a secret real estate obsessed weirdo, and I've been watching real estate since 1998 just because it's fun. And I had a pretty good idea that our house going on the market around this time would probably be a good financial bet for us. So we put it on the market about 2 weeks ago, and within 3 days, we had 4 offers. What do we do with that, right? You kind of have to take advantage of an opportunity when it comes. So that's where we are right now. We're in the middle of this whole transition. We still don't know what our life is going to look like, and that's kind of been working for us, making decisions about what's happening right now. We're no dummies. We always kind of keep one eye looking ahead in the future, right? You can't exclude either the past or the future, but you can certainly spend much more time in the present. And we're trying to make more and better decisions based on where we are in the present. And right now, Who To is really working for us. Brody, Susie, and Clarabelle are doing great. I put out a call in a local group for a trainer, instructor who can come to my farm and help me out until Susie and Clarabelle are ready to haul off property. We're not quite there yet. I got so many responses down here, I had to turn off comments. It took me 6 years in Rhode Island to find somebody who was willing to come out to my farm on a regular basis to work with me and my horses. And then it took me another year after that to find a trainer who I really, really enjoyed working with. Shout out to Nikki Mataronis of Mataronis Equestrian. So the difference, right? The difference between where I was and the opportunities there and where I am now are night and day. I'm almost like I don't know what to do with all these choices. Not just opportunities and choices, but people who are not just passionate about horses, but who are smart and forward thinking and like to talk about it, and who are much, I'm going to say it, who are much less defensive and protective. There seems to be a more collaborative mindset here. And I think that's because there are more resources, right? When you're not competing for clients and you're not competing for resources, you can be more collaborative. And that has permeated the horse culture down here. Now, I've only been here for 3 months. I may have a different opinion 3 years from now. But this feedback, the experiences that we're having here right now are all just feeding into, like I said, these decisions that we're trying to make in the moment. I've been riding somewhat regularly with Bevan O'Reilly of O'Reilly Equestrian. Bevan started out as one of my business clients. And since we're both in Aiken, I was like, hey, any chance you can come by and help me out with my horses? I really respect what you do. After working with her, I understood a lot about her philosophy and what she does. She said, sure. This woman came out to my farm and I fell in love with her. She is one of the best professional instructor I have ever ridden with. And you guys know how picky I am. I have ridden with a lot. She is, I can't even find words. It's one of those things. It's like when you're riding, you can just feel what your horse is doing. It's hard to put it into words. That's Bevan. She just connects. She gets it. She can figure you out. She can figure your horse out. We crack up. Her timing is impeccable. Her understanding of the horse is impeccable. Her experience. And she is a certified instructor with the USCA's instructor certification program. It has a new acronym. I'll let her tell you the next time she's on the show. This is somebody who doesn't just compete at the upper levels. She teaches that way, and she teaches upper level riders. Okay, so what does that mean? She's a busy woman. So when she can come out here to my farm, she does. But I need more. I want more because it's here. And I've waited a whole lot of years to get to this place. So the other day, so I've got someone out to restart Clarabelle for me. We had a first date yesterday, and that was so fun. I don't know about you guys, but there are times when I don't even have to be on the horse to see someone else working with my animal, and they're both enjoying each other, and we all kind of, we work with the same vibe. We have the same general principles about what it takes to train a horse, and the compassion and gentleness that you have to combine with some structure and support for horses, especially with thoroughbreds. It was just as much fun for me to watch him on Clarabelle as it was for me to ride. So there's options, right? There's just a lot going on. Clinics that are happening. So it would be so stupid for me to give this up, even for a couple of months. Yes, it's going to get hot, but that's okay because I'm designing a new barn for this property. And we are going to incorporate some cooling systems to keep our horses comfortable when we do experience those hot southern summers. So yeah, it's time. I'm going to be building another barn. This one is going to be very different than the barns I've had in the past because with my horses living out pretty much, not pretty much 24/7, they are out 24/7. They're like, what's a stall? They have no desire to go in the stalls. I do use them twice a day for feeding. I had a little issue with Susie last week. She had a tummy issue. Totally my fault. But as we were trying to resolve that, I had to put her in a stall just to watch for manure output. It's helpful to have stalls when the farrier is coming or the vet or the dentist. So stalls are always necessary, in my opinion. How we use them and how my horses use them, very different than anything I've done in the past. So follow along because I'm going to be sharing my experience shopping for builders, designing things, choosing materials. I'm going to cover all of that in future episodes. I could go on with a lot more, but I want to get to our new segment with Triple Crown Nutrition. You guys have told me in no uncertain terms that you love this segment, so I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to bring Stacy Anderson on. She manages their customer service effort at Triple Crown Nutrition. So if you or anyone you know has ever emailed or called or checked in with a question about their feed programs or just equine nutrition in general, Stacy is probably the person you spoke with. So we're lucky to have her here and have her undivided attention for a little while. Let's not waste any more time and welcome Stacy back to the show. Welcome back, Stacy, to Stall and Stable. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me back. I love being here.
I am just so happy to be surrounded by all the Triple Crown love. I have learned so much since partnering up with you guys for this podcast. I find myself so immersed in equine nutrition, where I used to think, okay, we need to feed our horses well, we need to feed them right. But now I'm obsessed. So I can see why you love your job so much.
Very fun, very interesting, but there's never a crystal ball, right? Like things are always changing and every horse is individual. So it's always fun putting those puzzle pieces together for people.
Now we're going to do some Q&A again. These are questions that come in from our listeners, and we don't always get to all the questions, but we do pick and choose from what you guys have submitted to us. Very, very quickly, before we get into the Q&A, you just came back from an industry conference. Is that right?
Yes, yes. We were down in Ocala, Florida for a big conference put on by KER, Kentucky Equine Research, and got some great new data there on, oh my goodness, all sorts of things. Omega-3 fatty acids. We talked about muscle disorders. So yes, my nerd brain was definitely fulfilled.
Well, I like to make the point that equine nutrition isn't just something that lay people can suddenly become experts at. That this is a subset of the industry of equine wellness that professionals, there's professional development, there's education. So these are things that are ongoing for you guys.
Absolutely. Yes. So we have to absorb this all the time. And especially, it's interesting because in my role with answering customer nutritional questions, daily I'm researching things, trying to find out what's the newest information out there in the scientific community and using that to help horses that might have some issues. It's ever changing and always really interesting.
So let's get into our Q&A for today. One of the ingredients in feeds, and even as a standalone feed item, is flax. It's popular in horse diets for its high fiber content and its anti-inflammatory benefits, the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids. But I hear on the grapevine that some horses can be allergic to flax. Is that true? Is there really a flax allergy? And if so, what alternatives are available in our horse's feed that might have the same benefits that flax does?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to jump up on a little soapbox here really quickly. So other equine nutritionists and PhDs might rejoice a bit. So we never saw allergens to flax before about 2020. Come about 2020, it seemed like anytime customers had these blood allergy panels done on their horses, that they were coming back with allergies to flax. And it wasn't 20% of horses, it wasn't 50% of horses. It was almost every single allergy panel was coming back that the horse was allergic to flax. And colleagues of mine started to find that very interesting. Like, that's really weird that this many horses are suddenly allergic to flax when in decades of equine nutrition, we have never had a problem with it. So colleagues had reached out to some of these companies that offer the blood allergy panel testing. And when they asked about this, we said, are you guys seeing the same statistical analysis? Like, are you guys seeing the same number of horses that are coming up positive to flax allergies? And the companies themselves said that more research and observation is needed on flaxseed, cottonseed, linseed, and oats to be sure that they have their parameters and testing set correctly for determining true positives. Now, I'm sure in the fine print somewhere in these test results, it does mention things about statistical analysis and accuracy and things like that. But it's not out there. And, I'm as guilty as everyone else. I don't always read the fine print. So when I get a chart back that's showing my horse is positive in flax and my horse has been exhibiting allergy type symptoms, I want to do everything I can. I mean, there's horses that are like ripping their skin off because they're so itchy or, having coughing or heaves and asthma type symptoms. And that's really concerning for horse owners. We don't want our horses to suffer that way. We'll do anything for them.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how many times I've had folks call with their allergen panel results and they want their horse completely off of flax. But I just think that it's not statistically proven well enough that the flax is actually a problem. So truly, if you think your horse has allergies, we really, really need to work with a board certified veterinary dermatologist. And really don't just trust those results on your own. Work with that dermatologist and get that figured out and listen to their opinion. Really, the only way to truly diagnose if a horse is allergic to something is, you can do this testing. You could do skin prick testing, which can give you an indication, but also removing the ingredient. And if the horse improves, then it likely is that your horse was allergic to that specific ingredient. So I kind of take the flax thing with a grain of salt. Usually when horses present allergies and their panels come up showing positive to flax, I will encourage folks, most Triple Crown products do have some flax because of its really great anti-inflammatory benefits. So I encourage people, let's try this. If it doesn't work, then we'll move to something else that is completely free of flax. Because the mistake that people will make is they will take their horses off of diets that include flax or other allergens that may not be necessarily truly an allergen for their horse. And then the horse is on an inferior diet for itself anyway, when it's not really allergic to that ingredient, especially with flax. So that's kind of, sorry, step down off my soapbox, but
no, I love soapboxes. I'll add something here is that while you're working with your veterinarian, if you are going to experiment at home and do sort of an elimination diet or remove what you think is the offending feed item, make sure all the other variables in your horse's diet are also gone, because that's one of the hardest things I think in trying to solve a mystery with horses is getting rid of all of the variables when you're testing for just one. So if you're feeding a whole bunch of other supplements, or it's 30 degrees one day and 75 degrees the next, do your best to eliminate as many other variables as you can if you're trying to isolate the flax as the problem.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that.
Okay.
So the actual question was, what are some alternatives to flax? Maybe your horse doesn't really like flax because it's generally a powder unless you're feeding the whole seed. So some horses are weird about textures. But I also have horses that absolutely love flax and will lick it right out of my hand. So, it's just completely horse dependent. But anyway, so if you need an alternative to flax because your horse cannot have flax for one reason or another, things like rice bran are great. Rice bran oils, camelina oils, even soy oils. So really we're looking for oils that have a tighter ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. We don't want something that is very, very high in omega-6s with very low omega-3s in terms of adding oils for anti-inflammatory benefits and that type of thing. If you're looking for those really high level of omega-3 fatty acids, similar to what you're looking for when generally folks are feeding flax, chia is a great option. What is looking to be the best option in terms of anti-inflammatory, though, is fish oil. Some people feel a little weird about feeding fish oil to their horse, but fish oil provides EPA and DHA directly, those good omega-3 fatty acids, whereas things like the chia and the flax actually provide the omega-3s in the form of ALA, which then the horse has to convert to EPA and DHA. So there's some thought that there's a little bit lost in that process of conversion. So you may not get as many of those beneficial health effects in terms of anti-inflammatory when you're using things like flax and chia versus something like fish oil. So for horses with allergies, we oftentimes will recommend a fish oil-based supplement because it can be really helpful.
Okay. So in order for your horse's body to make the best use of that fatty acid, fish oil has been proven to be the easiest for them to do that.
The form that is most beneficial for anti-inflammatory. Yes.
Right. Okay. So I did want one question before we move on to the next is camelina oils. Is that something we can get in the grocery store? Where do you get camelina? Because I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. So it has become really popular in certain segments of the horse industry. Pretty much any equine store online through equine supplement companies will offer camelina oils.
Okay, super. Listeners, I'll find links and post them so that you can get access if you want to try this with your horses. Okay, question. When changing brands of feed, how long does it typically take to see effects of that change in a horse's body?
Great question. So everyone hates these answers. It depends. It depends on many factors, like how overweight is the horse, how underweight is the horse. But generally, we can see if the horse is trending in the correct direction in about 2 weeks. So I tell folks, especially folks that see their horses every day, when you're trying to make a change either for weight gain or for weight loss, we recommend taking a picture from the side, from the rear, weekly or every other week, and also using a weight tape. We know that weight tapes aren't 100% accurate, but we can tell whether they're gaining or losing based upon the measurements that we're taking. We don't want to see final changes super quickly in horses. Like if a horse needs to lose 50 pounds, we don't want them to do that in 2 weeks. We want them to take a month or more to lose 50 pounds. Now, in terms of horses that have been emaciated, sometimes we can see some rapid change there, but still we're looking for slower weight gain. So generally for like a typical 1,000-pound horse, you want to gain or lose about 30 pounds a month. Again, that it really depends upon the other aspects of what's going on. But generally in about 2 weeks, you can see if you're trending in the correct direction.
Okay. Now, number 3 here. What should we look for in our horse's manure for signs they have a healthy or unhealthy gut? Now, I know you and I kind of bonded over our love of manure in our last session together, and I can't live without looking at my horse's manure. So let's talk about this.
Absolutely. I talk about this so much every day. So, okay. So the main things are quantity, color, odor, and consistency. Quantity, I know we're all very busy, but we want our horses to be going 4 to 12 times a day. That is not too much. So we're looking for quantity, and we're looking for normal quantity. So like your horse will have sort of its normal amount of times. And if something changes with that, if your horse normally kind of goes about 8 times a day and suddenly goes down to 2 times a day, maybe there's a problem. So you have to kind of keep that. That can give you a good first indicator that something is going on digestively with your horse. Next step is color. The color can vary. So the diet really can impact that. So anywhere from like greenish to brownish. Blackish is maybe like I worry a little bit sometimes with black that maybe they're getting a little dehydrated because sometimes dehydrated manure is a little darker. It can be even like a little bit of like an orangish or reddish tint if they eat quite a bit of beet pulp. And so those things are normal. You don't want blood, and you don't want like a grayish, slimy mucus kind of look to it.
Yeah.
So again, your horse's color of their manure is going to pretty much stay the same, except when you're making dietary changes. Like for instance, in the spring, if you start letting them on pasture, you might notice that your horse's manure becomes a little greener, that type of thing. So another good thing for you to be aware of is the color of your horse's normal manure, and kind of keep track of that, as that can also be a good indicator. Odor. Your
I
horses,
like the smell of horse
I
manure.
know.
Like when it's healthy, there's something in my brain that goes, yep, that's a good smell.
Yeah.
It's not offensive to me, but sometimes it's off.
Exactly. And it's funny to say, but we should all kind of know the normal odor of our horse's manure, because again, that can give us an indication that a bacterial infection or something like that may be occurring. If you're changing your diet too quickly, your horse might have a different odor. So we recommend when you're making any sort of diet change that you do it slowly, including forages. And that can be really hard because sometimes when you're in a boarding situation, they're bringing in a certain amount of hay, and when it's out, they're bringing in another load of hay. So you don't get that opportunity to ease them over, but trying to keep things as consistent as possible is best for the horse because we want that microbiome to stay steady. And lastly, consistency. For most horses, their healthy manure should be a little bit shiny and be in kind of a firmish ball. It is okay if you break those balls apart and you see pieces of fiber in there, but we don't want really long pieces of fiber, and we don't want things to be like super distinguishable, right? So like we don't want to be, I know that's alfalfa for sure, right? We don't want things to be that identifiable. Now, for many horses, especially horses that are aging, if maybe their teeth are getting a little poor, you might see a bit of the hull of the oat. If you're feeding an oat or an oat-based feed, you may see little pieces of grains or things like that. That's pretty normal. It can happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem. Oftentimes the horse is able to digest the starch that's inside of that grain. But just something to kind of, if that changes, like if your horse is eating a feed with oats and you never see oat hulls, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it, you might know, oh, maybe I need to have a dental done or something like that. So that's something that you can kind of look for. Now, I will say People are doing a great job at taking care of horses well into their advanced years, to the point where there are many horses that are simply outliving their teeth. And those horses oftentimes are not able to eat long stem fiber, meaning hay, pasture, that type of thing. Because their teeth have all fallen out or we've had to remove them, they're pretty much on complete feed mashes and or hay pellets that are soaked, things like that. For those horses, it can be normal for them to have more of like a, best way to describe it is sort of like a cow flop instead of a ball, because they don't have that long stem fiber to help their gut form that harder mass. But if you have a horse that is eating hay normally and that type of thing, and all of a sudden goes to like a cow pie, like loose manure, or even fecal water syndrome, like that's the new hot topic lately, right? So that oftentimes can be a ball. And then we have water that comes out after that. Those types of things can indicate disruptions in the digestive system and may need to be addressed through diet, maybe need to be addressed through dentals, things like that to kind of check out. So if your horse has diarrhea, and normally your horse has good form stools and suddenly has diarrhea, take their temperature. If they have a temperature, you should call your vet. All different types of things that we can do to help rectify this depending upon what the issue is. So for instance, if the horse is having trouble chewing hay, we can move to soaked cubes, hay pellets, complete feeds. If your horse has fecal water syndrome, we can try different pre and probiotics. We can try sand clear type products, because sometimes that can cause fecal water or diarrhea. Now, there's not a lot of good research out there as to whether or not the sand clear products really work, but I have seen things like that work for horses. So yes, just make sure that your horse is being consistent. And if they're not consistent, make sure they're not ill. If they're ill, call the vet. If they're not ill, feel free to consult with a nutrition consultant, because maybe there's something you can do to help rectify the problem.
Indeed. Sometimes I notice that my horse's manure will change depending on the kind of hay they get. I notice that my horse's manure will reflect immediately which kind of hay I'm feeding. So I've learned not to get worried about seeing fibers in the manure when I'm feeding them a little stemmier or rougher first cutting. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. And so that gets back to consistency, right? You sort of figured out that what your horse's normal consistency is depending on the type of hay that you're feeding.
Yeah, you have to pay attention, because it's those variables. You have to know what your horse's baseline is for healthy, and then you're better able to find something that's going wrong more quickly, and then therefore treat it or address it more quickly.
Absolutely.
So, okay. Well, that's all we have time for in this episode. We've got a bunch more questions, but we'll have to get those in our next Triple Crown Q&A with Stacy. Stacy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise with us again. Listeners, I will post links as to where you can find out more information about Triple Crown Nutrition. They have an incredible product line. There are so many options for you. So whatever it is that you need for your horse's well-being, nutrition-wise, Triple Crown has it. Stacy, thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me again.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this Q&A with Stacy from Triple Crown Nutrition. If you have a question about equine nutrition, feel free to send me an email. You can reach me at stallandstable.com and click on the Contact Us button. That'll take you to a simple form, and you can submit your question that we will try to address in an upcoming segment of our Triple Crown Nutrition series. If you need help with your business or your barn, please also feel free to reach out to me. I am available for appointments in Aiken County, South Carolina, or by Zoom, wherever you may be in the world. Thank you so much for following along, and thank you to Triple Crown Nutrition and American Stalls for helping to make this podcast possible. That's going to be a wrap for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it.